Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joe Jacob.
Hey guys, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Joel, and we got a great episode of Heat vs. the World today. And I got my dog Steven with me, and we got a lot to talk about. You know, whether if it was about this amazing win from the Heat against the Celtics or the trade deadline coming up, we got so much to talk about, and I'm just kind of ready to roll with it, man. But first, I feel like we got to talk about the Celtics game since this was very recent. And let's just kind of dive into it. So in case y'all did not remember, I mean, I don't know how y'all couldn't, because what a game, man. Even though Jimmy Butler didn't play, the Heat went out and they beat the Celtics, and it was just overall a great game. You know, it was kind of a weird one too, because you had this man Haywood Highsmith making a couple clutch threes in that fourth quarter, and out of anyone who could possibly save you in a game, Haywood Highsmith was not the person I was thinking of. So if you had that on your bingo card, you can scratch that off. So that was something interesting. But the night belonged to Idris Adebayo, because the man played amazing. You know, y'all look at that man's stats: 30 points, I believe 15 rebounds, just to name a few. Like, the man was all over the place, and it was just great to see. You know, obviously, you know, we know how it is with the critics. You know, they always come after Bam talking about, oh, he ain't this, he ain't that. Oh, Robert Williams is so much better than him. All this other crap. And for him to go out there and show the world why he is that guy and why people are so dumb for thinking the way how they think about him, it's just such a great thing to see. And it definitely boosts up the All-Star propaganda for him, especially if y'all saw that post-game interview. Like, the man just wants to go to Salt Lake City, and I really hope we can make that happen. But overall, man, it was just such a really good game to see. You know, from start to finish, it was entertaining. And overall, like, I just hope the Heat can continue to keep winning these games. You know, like, we're 27-22. We're still the 6th seed. So while these wins do look nice, we still got a lot of crying and how do I say this? Clawing and scratching that we got to do before we can get to where we need to be. But, you know, looking back on this game specifically, it was a good one. And Steven, I just want to know how you feel about it.
So I didn't really get to catch most of the game. I did get to catch the second half, though. And I will say this, fourth quarter clamps. Miami just, oh man. So when I was keeping up with the game, I was seeing that we were down. I was actually like, oh wow, we're going to get blown out. Crazy. But then the fourth quarter, I'm watching the fourth, and we absolutely stopped Boston's offense. Our defense, we're a top-ranked defensive team. Our defense is what really clawed us back in there. And I feel, you know, the defensive stops that we were getting later in the game really does fuel the players with some more energy, brings more life to the live crowd. So a lot of people really don't understand home court advantage and why it's such a big thing, because it really does matter. It really does get players going. It makes them want to perform more. So when you're clamping up one of the, you know, most historic offenses the game has ever seen. Now, granted, I know Boston had a few guys out, but still, the fact that throughout the whole game, Miami was down, they were playing catch up pretty much the whole game. The fact they turned things around in the fourth quarter and it helped energize an offense around Bam, like, there's nothing more that you can ask for, especially with Jimmy Butler being out. I've been saying this. I believe I said it on the last pod I was on. Bam needs to be the first option for Miami, because an aggressive Bam really does get his whole game going. His confidence increases, and he just has such a versatile skill set, and he's perfected the post fade. That little mid-range shot that he gets to a spot in, like, that is his bread and butter. An aggressive Bam is a great Bam, and he led us to a win not only on this night on both ends, but I think I saw a stat when he scores 30 points or more, we're 7-1 in those games. So shout out Bam, shout out Miami as a whole on the defensive end.
Right. And that's a huge stat you bring up because and I don't want to make it seem like I'm pointing any fingers at anyone else, but it seems like in the past when other guys have stepped up and have 30-point games, there's been a bit of a losing record for them specifically. But when you have a guy like Bam, go out there and have a good game, like it just shows how much of an impact not only he can have defensively, but on the offense end too. And overall, like for this squad, like we said before, it's all about how do you walk away from these wins? Can you continue to use this as momentum? Because in the past, like Miami is not new to winning these types of games, whether if it was that other win against Boston, the win against Phoenix, and the win against any other of these good teams that you got in the league. The question is, can we keep it going, Because like I said before, we're only 5 games above 500, and there's still a lot of work that has to be done. And one thing is for sure is that we need to make a trade. I know a lot of people have said this on social media, and I do agree. Like, we should not let any of these wins blind us from the fact that there has to be improvements to this team. And I couldn't agree anymore because while this team looks nice, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say nice, but they look nice getting these wins at least. Like, while it looks good, we know that the ultimate goal is to win a championship, get that man Jimmy Butler a ring while he is still in the Heat jersey. So if you're Miami, I think the question is, you look at your team and you just got to know, like, what do you have to do to get better? And I mean, some of the stuff we see right there, whether if it's needing a new power forward or whatever, like the things that we have to do to get better is right in front of Miami. And it's just a matter of, can we make those moves? Because my hope and prayer is that we get a sequel to the trade we made back in 2020. To those who don't remember, we went into that trade deadline and we made the big trade that got us Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, and Solomon Hill. And it was a good move for Miami. We got rid of 3 players who weren't really doing much for us in Hassan, not Hassan, but Dion, James Johnson, and Justice Winslow. They were either injured or they had their other problems. We got rid of them and we got in 3 guys that ended up being really productive for Miami. And they ended up playing that trade, at least ended up playing a key role in why we made it to the finals. So the question is, if you're Miami, you look at the team you have right now, and how do you find a way to convert this into a finals team? And if anyone can do it, I know a lot of people have been on him lately, but I still believe in Pat Riley. I'm still gonna have faith in him. I believe that we can get things done the right way. It's just a matter of how. So, like Steven, I know like before we got on the mic today, like you were mentioning, certain types of deals that he can make. And I just want to know, like, what do you think that he can do to fix this team? Like in other words, what is your idea of that 2020 type trade for the Heat this year? What's the type of trade that you think could play an impact on this team making it to the finals? Because one thing, before I have you answer, one thing I just want to mention is that if you look at the past few teams that have made it to the NBA Finals from the Eastern Conference, they have all made some sort of major trade that helped take them to the next level and make it to the finals and most likely win the championship. For example, 2019, you have the Raptors. They went out and they made a couple of moves. Whether if it was getting Marc Gasol, a former All-Star from Memphis, and they made a couple other moves to go along with that team. And that helped them not only make it to the finals, but they won the championship. 2020, the Heat. I already mentioned the Iguodala trade. Then 2021, you have Milwaukee. They went and they got PJ Tucker. And I didn't watch all the Bucks games that year, just the playoff ones because I unfortunately had to. And some of the playoff games too after that. But one thing I would say is that I think it's safe to say that PJ was basically their third best defender, only being behind Giannis and Drew. I don't know if that's a hot take, but for me, it seemed like that the dude was basically guarding all of the best players from each team throughout that championship run for them. So for 2021, you got the Bucks getting PJ at the deadline. And then 2022, I mean, the Celtics didn't do much, but I guess it's fair to acknowledge the fact that they did get Heat killer Derek White, and we know what he did in the playoffs against us. And then in some of these games he's played against us this year as well. Like I think he had like over 20 points just this other night. So overall, like it seems like the trade deadline has always been a huge thing specifically for these Eastern Conference teams. So if Miami can just find a way to capitalize on it, then it's a good idea to get your hopes up, because I always want to be optimistic with this team. I always want to believe they can get the job done, and I still believe they can do that. So I know it took me a while to finally get to you on this, but Steven, like what are the improvements that you want to see the Heat make to, get their hopes up, get their chances of winning, or not only winning, but just making it to the finals and then potentially winning a championship?
Well, I think any moves we make, we drastically have to improve that front court because right now it's essentially just Bam Adebayo. Caleb Martin at the four, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to win you a championship. Now, I'm not saying, oh, trade Caleb. I'm not automatically just saying get him off the team. Obviously, if the right trade, comes to be, Caleb Martin, you can go. But that goes for most of the Miami Heat roster. So Bam, Tyler, Jimmy, I would consider them untouchable. Maybe not so much Tyler. Tyler could go for the right price, but our front court is cooked. Omer Yurtseven, who knows when he'll be back. He's still very raw. Dewayne Dedmon, my favorite center of all time.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, very sad. No, but all jokes aside, Dedmon is not cutting it. He was great that first season we brought him in. He was a nice surprise, but he's like what? I think I saw a stat. He's got like the worst plus minus in like the whole NBA. So Dwayne Dedmon has to go. And then for power forward, like we've really had to play guys like Haywood Highsmith, sometimes Jimmy Butler at the four, and those guys are like 6'6", 6'7". Now, small ball, like here's the thing. I know it's a thing, but like we are just absolutely cooked. We need size. So I was talking to you before the pod started that I want to bring in a guy like Kristaps Porzingis. Now, I was actually in the trade machine trying to make things work, and the salaries aren't quite matching up. We have a lot of guys on expiring contracts, but easily bringing in more teams because there hasn't been a lot of action. We've literally seen the one trade, Rui Hachimura going to the Lakers. Like we've seen one trade and one trade only. So I feel teams need to kind of get involved with not only one team but two teams to kind of get the needle moving around the league. So, I threw the idea of Miami, Washington, Toronto. You got a team in Miami who does have pieces, a lot of expiring pieces. We have some draft picks to throw. You look at a team like the Wizards; they really don't know what they're doing. I feel like they should just enter a rebuild. And then you got the Raptors, who are kind of in no man's land. They have talent, but it's not going anywhere. And they got guys like Siakam and Van Vliet who are just getting older. So I feel maybe a three-team trade: Miami, Washington, Toronto. Maybe we can get the needle moving. Some guys I would love to bring in, kind of like low-key moves, right? Kind of like role player type of guys. I'm a big Thaddeus Young fan. I would love to bring Thaddeus Young in as a four, maybe like a backup, potential starter, depending on how that market is really looking overall. I would love to go after a guy like a Serge Ibaka. I think Serge Ibaka, he's got championship pedigree. I don't really like to agree with people saying certain players are washed. To be fair, a few years back when Serge got his injury, he never really got a fair shake with minutes after that. Now, I'm not saying he's like like a prime Serge Ibaka, but I want to go as far as to say he's washed because washed would, indicate, well, he gets the minutes, he just can't produce. Well, this is the opposite. He doesn't get the minutes to produce. And at this point, we all know that he's just a role player. Well, he's been a role player his whole career. And Kyle Lowry, he's got to go. I'm a big Kyle Lowry fan, but he's got to go, and he's way too overpaid. Like, preferably trading him to a contender, and maybe Gabe Vincent potentially in the right trade. Like I've told you guys multiple times, the point guard position is the most stacked position in all of basketball. So if there's like a trade out there that involves having to give up Lowry and Gabe Vincent, like honestly, like it's not going to be that hard to find a replacement for them. We can even put Oladipo at the point guard spot, but yeah, Joel. So I know you had some guys as well that you were talking about. I know you mentioned Mo Bamba and Miles Turner earlier in the pod here. Yeah, so like, what are some pieces that you want to see? Like, maybe like, whether it's like a position need or a specific player that you think would fit us. I'm pretty curious, my man.
Man, like, and so, first thing I want to mention is that, so I see where you're going with the Serge Ibaka thing, and I see where you're going with it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I do have my concerns mainly because of the age and stuff like that. However, the thing is that Serge is in a unique situation for Miami's radar because at the end of the day, like, he is, even though you can say like you mentioned, he's not in his prime exactly, he's still a much better center to have on your team than a guy like Dewayne Dedmon. Like Dedmon is not getting any minutes right now, but instead our two-way guys getting those minutes. So that alone just tells you what you need to know. So, at the end of the day, like I'm not opposed to Serge Ibaka because, like I said, he does seem a lot better than Dedmon. But if you have a chance to get someone much better, I think me and you can easily agree that you should go for that first. In other words, I feel like Serge Ibaka should be a last resort for us. Like if you cannot get anyone else, then that's the guy you go for.
Well,
And also including
he
the
is
fact
cheap
that you can
too.
get him on the right price. So you can go ahead.
Well, he is a cheap. He's like a really cheap option as well. So you won't really have to give up too much. I mean, the Wizards basically just got a whole bunch of second round picks for Rui, and then a guy who was pretty much goose egg all season. But yeah, just Serge is very cheap.
Right. And like I said, it could definitely be like a last, like not a last, but like, one of your final few options where, you're near the deadline, you still haven't been able to address the need, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But if you're still not able to get anyone that you feel like could fill in that hole that we desperately need to fill in, then I mean, by all means, you could go for Surge, but I definitely wouldn't consider him as like one of my first few options for a big man. But looking at it, you mentioned like from what I was saying earlier, like Mo Bamba, in my opinion, would be a good player to have on the Heat because Miles Turner and all these other guys seem so good to be true as a player on this team. But the thing is that they want bags, man. Whether if it's him or getting a four like Kuz, like these guys are trying to get paid, and I don't know. It's just going to be too tough for Miami to make all that type of stuff happen. So overall, like you get a guy like Mo Bamba. I mean, you're talking about a guy that already got his money, and he's on a cheap deal too, I believe, right? Am I right or am I wrong? I'm pretty sure he got
Yeah,
a
I mean, I
cheap
think he
contract.
signed an extension, but it wasn't anything too crazy. And Miles Turner, he's up for a payday, right?
Yup.
That's crazy. I mean, what's funny about Miles Turner is every season I feel like he says this at some point. He's gonna break out. He's gonna break out. Well, I'm still looking at my watch. I'm still waiting for that season to happen.
Right. And, I don't know. I guess he's trying to view himself as a player that's worthy of a Jeremy Grant type deal because, Jeremy Grant is a specific player I look at. And before we go into it, I'm not saying that I necessarily see the Heat trading for him. But, he's one of those guys where, like, he's not good enough to be an all-star, but, you and I both know, like, he would be a valuable player to have on your team. And, we see that in the contracts he get. Like, when he signed with Detroit a couple seasons ago, like that man got like 60 mil on a 3-year deal. So, guys like him, I guess that's how Miles Turner kind of views himself. Regarding if he is kind of like a Jeremy Grant, I personally wouldn't know about that, when it comes to being that big of a role player for a team to obtain. I mean, you do look at some of the deals that have been going out, like the Lakers potentially giving away the rest of their future in those 2 first-round picks just to get him and the Buddy Hield. But, we'll just have to see what happens from there. But overall, like, I'm not getting my hopes up for a guy like Miles because of the potential contract he'll get. And then, I know everyone has had, the hopes of getting maybe a guy like OG Anunoby, but, it's very obvious that the Raptors want a lot for him. A report recently came out that a mystery team came out and offered 3 first-round picks for OG. Personally, I don't think that's true. Even if it is, that's crazy. But, a part of me believes that this is basically the Raptors leaking this information out so that, they can get teams to look at that and be like, oh, wow, like if a team was willing to give 3 first-round picks for him, then, I better up my package then if I want to have a chance to get him. So that's just showing how far they're willing to go to get the massive package that they want for him. And overall, like, the big names that are out there is going to cost a lot. And I mean, luckily, you look at the Lakers and how very little they had to give for a guy like Roy, and that kind of gets your hopes up a bit. But if Miami can make a good deal, that would be great for one of those guys. But it's something that I'm a little concerned about, and that's why I really look at Mo Bamba because, first of all, I think he's a pretty good shooter. I haven't seen a lot of his highlights, but it's at the point where I just want to big on this team, man. Like, I'm just so tired of everything that I've seen with Dewayne Dedmon. And it also doesn't help that Omer got this injury and he's missed a huge part of this season. And I just want to see a big that's actually good. And that might sound like a diss, and it definitely is, but I just want to have a guy that can go out there and do his thing. And, maybe a guy that can, step in for Bam when he has to go on the bench and play some good minutes. I mean, and this is not a shot at Orlando because he's doing the best he can as a two-way player. But, I just want to have a feeling where it doesn't feel like the world is coming to an end the second Bam comes off the floor. Because that's basically what it's been like. I'll have people tell me, like, I'm in group chats and stuff to talk hoops with other people. And they'll tell me, like, hey, this dude Dedmon coming into the game, like now we getting ready to lose this, and they'll be like, oh, we up 15 and Dedmon coming in, oh, okay, it's about to be an 8-point lead for the other team real soon. So like, I just simply want to have a guy to come on the floor as a big man and provide good minutes so that I do not have to worry about the possibility of everything blowing up, that I do not have to have this anxiety within me that things are going to fumble the second so-and-so comes to the floor. So if we could just get that as a center, I feel like that would be great. Having a guy like Miles Turner would be nice, or a Kyle Kuzma at the 4, but regarding the bigs, I mean, Mo Bamba, me, do whatever, just don't overpay. I'm sure Miami's smart enough to realize that. There are a lot of fans out there saying that we got to give up a first-round pick to get certain players. And I feel like that's a little too insane because I understand we want to get some good talent on this team, but there are specific players out there that I wouldn't just throw a first round pick away for. So I feel like that's something that we do got to acknowledge. And overall, like, it's kind of hard for me to tell exactly how much I want, despite, aside from the bigs and the 4s, because at the end of the day, like, it's so tough trying to see who's on the trade market and who's not. I guess if I had to say, I would be interested in seeing some of the other players that a team like Toronto would give up, and I'm I mean, I don't know what's up with the Bulls. Are the Bulls still in thinking about maybe blowing that team up, or
I would. They're not winning nothing. And they got
I
guys
don't.
that are aging too. Honestly, so actually one guy he just came to my mind right now. Joel, how would you feel about Naz Reid on the Heat? Because the Timberwolves, I think I saw a report saying they're not going to sign him to an extension. Naz Reid on the Heat? What do you think?
I would low key take that. I know that's been kind of one of the proposed trade packages that a lot of Heat fans have been making on the trade machine. I think it's like D'Lo and Nas Reed for Kyle and maybe a guy like Dedmon. I mean, you know what? I'll say it like this. It goes back to what I said earlier about having a center, a big man that can actually go out there and do good in the whatever many minutes he's playing in. So, you know, all I know is that I don't really watch Timberwolves games, but I know Nas Reed
No one
always
does.
cooks against the Heat. And I know there are a lot of fans out there that wants him. Like I know I follow fans from a lot of other fan bases, and I've seen Brooklyn fans want Nas Reed and stuff like that. So, I guess if there are other fan bases that really want this dude like that, then I don't know. Maybe it's a good fit. If the Heat take interest in him, I'm gonna take the hope that they know what they're doing, and hopefully he ends up being a good fit. So overall, like I said before, in my opinion, I'd be down with it, assuming that it's for a good package. And like I said, I just want a center that could be good at their position, because keep in mind at the end of the day, like Dewayne Dedmon is still on this team and he's gonna maybe have to get some minutes soon because as long as Orlando Robinson is on a two-way contract, he cannot play for the full season because of the limitations that a two-way contract has. So, it's definitely a need that Miami needs to take care of, or they're gonna be in a situation where they're gonna have to play Dedmon more minutes unless a guy like Yurt can come back from his injury. And even then, I'm just at a point where I've kind of moved on from Yurt. I really just want to look at if we could get another big and go from there because I really don't want to give up on any of our players. But I haven't been completely too moved with Yurt. When he first came to the Heat, he had a few good games specifically when you go back to last year and Bam got injured, but I don't know. With everything going on and him getting injured, and not only the fact that he was also a pretty bit of a slow player when he was playing in games for the Heat, I'm just at a point mentally where, you know, if they want to keep him as a third string guy, okay. But at this point, I'm kind of ready to move on from him. So if they were to include him in a trade package or whatever, you wouldn't necessarily hear some complaints from my end. But overall, like I wouldn't be opposed to a Nas Reed type trade.
Well, I'm gonna defend my man Yurt Seven. So because you know what, when he was going on a tear last year, I think it was like 13 games in a row, and he had double-digit rebounds
Right. And I think
every
it
single
was
game.
only Shaq, rookie Shaq that had done that.
Yeah, I
Like,
think so. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I got nothing against shout outs to him because, we don't really got any Indian players in the league, but he looks kind of Indian, so I feel the need to root for him, even though he's actually
he's
Turkish.
not Indian, right? No,
Yeah,
he's
he's Turkish. Yeah, he's from Turkey, so
well. You know
but
what? You
still,
guys did have you had Sim Bular to represent you guys, though.
that's true. And I heard he cooked Dwight Howard the other day, so shout outs to him.
Yo,
But
Sim Bular to the Heat. Let's go. That's a big boy
yo,
right there. We need some size. Sim Bular, come down to Miami. We'll get you in shape.
yo, yo, that's true, man. The perfect backup big for Bam. So let's make that happen, Miami. Let's get on the phone, hit up the Chinese TVs on and let's make it happen. But but going back to all this, I mean, overall, it's just gonna be really interesting to see what the Heat ends up doing. I mean, hopefully we'll get some more legit reports coming out, and I can't emphasize the word legit enough because I feel like every day we hear these reports that we honestly shouldn't even be believing, oh, Miami is interested in this guy, they're interested in that guy. Okay, we get it, but are we legitimately after them, because we see those tweets from NBA Central and all these other basketball accounts that are out there. And like, if I have to hear from these insiders who I don't even know who they are, like, I'm just gonna lose it, because unless it's someone that's here in South Florida, an actual person that has sources with the team, or if it's a guy like Woj Shams, I mean, that's when I'll really listen. But at this point, I feel like we've heard so much that I've just gotten so exhausted with it. But like, I just want to know, like, before we close it out and before we officially end the trade deadline convo, at least for today's episode, because we'll talk about this more in the next episode. Like, is there any other needs, in your opinion, that you think we should address?
I would love to have a really decent wing player to come off the bench because I really don't want Caleb Martin to be our power forward in the long term. But like he's gonna have to be if we don't really make a move. So like if you look at our bench right now, Strus would be that wing player, but Strus is also very streaky. Like I just want a solid wing player that can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
But
my mic cut out. Yeah,
you're
but
good.
like a solid all-around wing guy, like someone like a Nick Batum type of player. Like Nick Batum could kind of do a little bit of everything. You know, I want that jack of all trades wing player to come off the bench, kind of initiate anything you really need him to. Like you need him to score, got you. You need him to set people up, got you. Good
I
defense, got
mean,
you.
so I just gotta quickly say though, because like this is the second old person we've mentioned on today's episode. I don't really want to rely too much on like the old guys specifically. I feel like Batum would probably be a last resort too, because the
Oh
thing
no, I'm
is,
saying like a player like him,
right,
not Nick Batum, but like a player with like his type of skill set.
got you. Yeah, because I got PTSD from a couple seasons ago when we invested all of that hope into Trevor Ariza, made him the starting power forward and everything, and he did good in that regular season. But y'all know what happened next in the playoffs. Like, that man
Yeah.
was out here getting demolished by Giannis, and I just cannot put my faith into another old player just so they can get destroyed by a guy like Giannis, Joel Embiid, or whoever we might end up facing in the playoffs. So, the name of an old person just kind of shook me for a second. So you
Hey,
gotta mind
Trevor
me.
Ariza. Trevor
Yeah.
Ariza, if you're listening to this, you are not a Heat legend, my friend. You are not a Heat legend, my friend.
But, and like I said, man, overall, it's just going to be really interesting to see what the Heat is going to do, because there's so many ways in which they can take this team to. And, it's going to be interesting to see what Pat Riley thinks, what Andy Ellsberg and their whole squad has in mind. So, I know a lot of people have been hesitant in doing so, but we finna trust in Pat Riley, and hopefully he knows the way. Because I know it's been a frustrating past few months of not seeing the Heat make any sort of move. The last time we did make a move was almost 2 years ago when we traded for Oladipo, I believe. I know. Well, technically there was the sign and trade, but that's I don't necessarily count that because Kyle wanted to come to Miami, and we didn't have the cap space, so we had to do it like that. So really, if you think about it, our last actual trade was almost 2 years ago with Depot coming to Miami. So hopefully that drought finally comes to an end, and hopefully it's a good move. Because like I said, you look at these past few teams that made it to the finals from the Eastern Conference. They did some sort of big trade that helped propel them further to make it to that point. So hopefully for Miami, they end up getting into that situation and that they can find that ideal trade package that could work wonders for them when the time comes. But aside from that, I feel like we've talked so much about, the trade deadline, and we're getting really close to it. So I can't wait to cover that even more. But, back to the Miami Heat, well, I mean, we've been talking about the Miami Heat for this whole pod, but, back to focusing on this team we have now, We got a lot of games headed our way, specifically this game against Orlando. And I just want to know, Steve, like, what do you expect from the Heat in this game? And while we at it, who do you think is going to be the random scrub Heat killer? Because we know someone is going to go out there and have 30 points against us tomorrow.
So I think we're gonna get destroyed just by their front court because like when I was taking a look at their roster, so I'm gonna name the big men on their team. Um, Bol Bol, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner, and what's his name? Oh yeah, Mo Bamba. So those are like 7 foot plus guys right there. The Heat's tallest guy, well, our center is Bam. So I feel like we're just gonna get absolutely cooked by their front court. But a random scrub to go off against us. I want to call him a scrub, but Terrence Ross has a pretty good track record against us. So Terrence Ross will be my pick.
I just gotta say, the fact that man is still on the Magic is insane. It's probably about as crazy as Eric Gordon being on the Rockets. But for me personally, I don't even know half the players on the Magic. So my apologies if my random scrub Heat killer isn't even on the team anymore. Um, I'm gonna say it's gonna be Chuma Okiki. I don't know if he's on the team still, but I remember him cooking us a couple seasons ago. I don't know if he's still on the squad, but that's gonna be my pick for the random scrub Heat killer. And do the Heat get the job done? I don't, it's crazy because this is a Magic team that has been beating a lot of really good teams. The Celtics had lost to the Magic, the game before losing to the Heat, and they've beaten some other good teams as well. So I wouldn't be, I don't want us to lose. And you know what? I'm going to say we find a way to keep on winning, and hopefully it's like that. Because, like I said, I know we have this track record of losing a game that we should have won after winning a really big game. So hopefully that is not the case after this one, and we'll just see what happens from there. And before we wrap it up, I might have to edit this halfway into the pod, but I got to do it right now while we still got some time left. Four NFL teams, two conference championship games, and only a few more shots to win big on the playoffs with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Counting down to Super Bowl 57, new customers can bet just $5 and get 200 in free bets instantly. Not a new customer? You can feel the conference championship thrills with stepped up same game parlays. Take your shot at an even bigger NFL payout and boost your winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. And it's going to be some two good games for the NFL coming up. If I had to pick, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm just going to pick the, you know what? I really want to go with the Bengals, but I just do not like Eli Apple, so I might just have to go with the Chiefs. So I got the Chiefs and then the Eagles beating who is it? The 49ers. So Chiefs and Eagles, that's gonna be my prediction. Do you have a prediction of your own, Steven?
I'm not really a football guy.
All right, just name two random teams then out of the four I just mentioned.
Uh Probably Bengals.
All right, and one more.
Um Eagles.
There you have it. So the Bengals and Eagles are Steven's pick. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code TBPN. New customers can bet $5 on the conference championships and get 200 in free bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code TBPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. And that's basically about it. So, going back into the Heat, hopefully they can get this win, get a winning streak going. And it's just going to be interesting to see what happens next. Like we said earlier, there's only 39 games left, a lot of basketball left to be played. And, hopefully we can really get something going. Like, is there any words of wisdom, advice that you'd like to share with Heat Nation, Steven? Because I know they have been uneasy since not even the start of the season, but ever since we missed out on Donovan Mitchell. So do you have any words of wisdom for Heat fans as we get ready for what's potentially going to be, a nerve-wracking next couple weeks?
Yes, I do actually. Heat Nation, last year, we were considered contenders. This year, we are not looking too hot. Well, you know what? Last year, the Boston Celtics, they were the exact same way we are this year. But then they turned it up in the second half, and then guess what? They beat your Miami Heat's ass in the conference finals. We can do the same thing to them and any other team we want this year. We're 7-3 in our last 10. We're currently on a 2-game winning streak, and we're getting Jimmy Butler back. We're starting to find our groove. Don't listen to people saying the Heat can't do it. The Heat can't do it. Well, you know what? We couldn't make the finals in 2020. We did that. We couldn't go on a deep playoff run last year. We did that. Literally one shot away from another finals appearance. The media hates us. The casual fan hates us. The hardcore fans probably hate us too. But we keep exceeding expectations. We're gonna rise up. Heat Nation, stand up.
Amen. Amen, man. Hey, man, you have me feeling like I was in church. I just had to keep saying amen, like the pastor, like the people be doing as the pastor keeps speaking, man. Like,
yes, sir.
Like, you almost made me tear up. Like, hopefully we do turn things around. You almost had me a little upset the fact that you brought up the fact that the Celtics beat us, but you were able
just for motivation purposes, just for motivation.
Yeah, you were able to turn it back to a positive note. So shout outs to you for that. But I basically couldn't have said it any better. I know some people have had this fear that everyone looks at what the Celtics did last year, and because they've had slow starts, they believe that they can turn things around. But I truly believe maybe the Heat can do something similar to that. And it all starts with the trade deadline, because truth be told, like, I love our team, but right now this squad is not going to cut it. So I feel like this trade deadline is going to be really huge. Probably going to be about as big as the one we had a couple years ago in that 2021 season. Hopefully the difference is that we won't have the same result come playoff time like that season has specifically. But overall, we're going to have so much coverage for that. And before we wrap it up, just thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at JoelKJacob_. And Steven, would you like to tell everyone your Twitter handle?
Yeah, you can follow me at Steven Gets Buckets. So that is Steven Gets BKTS on Twitter.
Yes, sir. And make sure to follow Heat vs. the World on all platforms at HBTW Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Heat vs. the World. And make sure to just check out all of our stuff. We're trying to get active on all the platforms possible. We're going to have so much coverage, especially with this trade deadline coming soon. And all we know is we're either going to be really happy if the Heat do make a move, or we're going to be extremely depressed if the Heat do nothing. But still, it's going to be fun. You get to watch us potentially cry or be happy. So it's definitely something that you do not want to miss. Make sure to check out all of our shows. We got Biscayne Breakdown coming back real soon on the YouTube channel. Culture Shock, the girls will be working on something, and hopefully we can get a project out with them real soon as well. And it's just going to be fun. So, we got these few 39 games left for the Heat. Hopefully it'll be fun, and hopefully it won't make us depressed like some of these games that we had to sit through for the first half of the season. But y'all know the Miami Heat will never make it easy for us because we've watched enough games. But overall, it is what it is. We're going to ride with this team no matter what. So until next time, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast. And until next time, y'all, hit my music because we out.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat vs. the World podcast.